Previously on Funny Science Fiction.
I was like breaking down as a human. I'm like, why am I creative? What am I why do I do this? Like, I can't do it anymore. Oh man. So I am both pleased and upset.
Hi, this is Jeff Dwoskin, and welcome to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
The podcast where we're the only place where Stan Lee has never done a cameo. What, too soon? So our guest today is the host of the podcast called The Jeff Dwoskin Show. Actually, it's live from Detroit, The Jeff Dwoskin Show.
That is correct. And it's good to be here on the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
Yeah, oddly enough, the host of that show happens to be our guest, Jeff Dwoskin. I mean, what are the chances of that happening? Seems kind of strange, I know. But welcome to the show, Jeff. Glad to have you here.
Good to be here. Good to be here. There are more than one Jeff Dwoskins out there. So I was lucky to get the job. I had to apply. There were about 7 of us up for it. And, just worked out. It worked out.
Some tough competition for the namesake, I see. All right, Jeff, Mr. Dwoskin, if you're respectful. First things first, tell everybody about what's going down over on Live from Detroit. What's your show about? What goes on over there?
Yeah, for sure. I consider it my pop culture dreams come true. I have fun conversations with actors and comedians and authors. I've been doing stand-up comedy for 18 years. So one of the threads is talking to comedians that I've worked with, some that I haven't worked with, some that I just know from engaging with them on Twitter. Occasionally I'm introduced to 1 or 2 and they want to be on the show too. That's, and then talking to like actors, and I love talking to people about movies they've been in, but more like stories from the movies, like, just stuff that you guys like too, just like those sideline stories. I always kind of equated to, like, I loved watching Entertainment Weekly growing up, and it's like those kind of like, faux drama things, like those things always really, really interested me. So those are the kind of things that I love talking about and hearing about, and origin stories and stuff like that. So most of the people that come on to my show, I kind of do it as kind of a get to know you type thing. Sometimes, with comedians, they just jump in, but it's just fun. I'm having a good time doing it, and that's it. And got to meet cool people like you, and you come on cool shows like this. There's a Funny Science Fiction Podcast. And
that's right. Now I've watched it several times. I'm a subscriber, so to the Apple version, and I've watched it several times online, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoy listening to some of the theories that people throw out about some of the stuff that they've watched or they've done. And I like the introductions that the interactions and introductions to people that I maybe wasn't familiar with before, and getting used to hearing from them. So really cool show. Strongly suggest anybody who's watching or listening to this show go over and check out Live from Detroit. It's Jeff Dwoskin. But yeah, you're gonna like it. It's a good time. So in your bio, Jeff, you listed yourself as a big MCU fan. So we're going to do some deep dives on MCU theories and characters to really no, I'm just kidding.
I do like the MCU. I've seen all the movies so far.
All right, well, cool.
And I am caught up on WandaVision.
Excellent.
So, and I'm eagerly awaiting the Falcon and Winter Soldier. So, I mean, I might be able to hang with an MCU conversation if you want.
Yeah, we're not going to go big deep into that. But what we would like to know, what is your favorite movie or show from the MCU thus far, and who's your favorite character?
That's a great question. My favorite MCU movie, I'm still partial. I still love the first Avengers movie because I think it made me feel so good when they just brought all that together. It was just so cool. I think the whole thing is a marvel in itself, and I use that word on purpose, but also because it fits. I think my favorite character, I think I've always loved Spider-Man, and I think I continue to, and I think this version of Spider-Man is one of the better ones, though I did love Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man as well. But I do love Spider-Man, and I think if I was going to pick a second character that I really, really enjoy, I really enjoy Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, because I'm actually a big Paul Rudd fan, and
I love Paul Rudd.
I think he brings a good kind of sense to it. Carol Danvers doesn't do much for me yet in the MCU. I'm not saying she's like my least favorite or anything,
Right.
but it was a good movie. I liked Captain Marvel as a movie, but I don't know. The character hasn't really done much for me yet, and I don't think they did her any favors in the last Avengers movie, bringing her in as such a bit character. I think there was such a high expectations for her to. The fact that they kind of got that movie out so quick before the Avengers, and then she had so little to do in that movie.
Yeah.
I think it would have been kind of cool if she had done more, and I think it was kind of a missed opportunity. But other than that, I'll tell you the one I at least like, the movie I at least like is Age of Ultron. That movie to me it's hard for me to even try and rewatch it. And I've tried to rewatch it. It didn't hit like the other ones did. All the other Avenger movies, I think, hit hard, and most of the other movies did as well. But for some reason, Ultron should have been like one of the cooler ones.
Should have been
like
amazing.
James Spader as Ultron. I mean, his voice
is great.
Is just, I mean, it was such a win. I mean, it gave us vision, but other than that, I don't think as a movie it didn't click or feel like the other ones did.
Right. I've actually always said that Age of Ultron is a stopgap. It was a filler movie to try and get some story content in, to try and bridge the gap between where they were at and where they wanted to go. But they needed some pieces to fill in those corners of the MCU, so they threw together Age of Ultron. And I think that's what happened there. I like to think that Kevin Feige and those guys down at Marvel have a better clue as to what they're doing, but I really feel that that's what happened with Age of Ultron, is that it was a throw together. It was just like, okay, we need these pieces here. We got to introduce, Wanda and Pietro, and we got to figure out a way to get them in. But oh yeah, that's right, we can't use Magneto, so okay, we're gonna have them be Hydra pawns, and there was a lot of little things in there that they couldn't do because of contractual stuff, I guess. But yeah, and I too was a little disappointed in Captain Marvel in Endgame, because I was like awaiting her to come in and just like hand Thanos his behind, because as powerful as she is, she could have came in and saved it. And I just thought that I understand why they wrote it the way they did, because they had to have a graceful exit for the real life Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., to end his run as Iron Man. I understand why they did what they did, but I still go, she should have just come in a swinging personally.
I will say that this may not to rock controversy on your show, but I rewatched Iron Man 2, which I did not have original fond memories of. However, watching it now, meaning the close of Endgame and all that kind of everything's happened. If you watch it now, one of the reasons probably it didn't feel right at the time is it was a pure setup movie. There was so much being set up in that movie. If you watch it now, you're like, oh, that paid off. That paid off. That paid off. And so there's like a little bit more of appreciation watching it after the fact than watching it real time, where you didn't really know, because you were still, I think Iron Man 2, you were still in this, the Marvel universe has never been done before. I mean, what they pulled off with these 20 some movies has never been done before.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
And I think back in the Iron Man 2 days, it was still, I think, up in the air what was really going to happen. Right. I mean, there was no reason for us to believe anything was going to still be as huge as it was about to be. But if you rewatch it, there's a lot in there, and that was when Black Widow came in, and there was a lot of things that they kind of just teed up. So I think it's worth a rewatch.
I'll agree on that.
I'm gonna have to go through and rewatch now.
You know, I think when Iron Man 2 came out, I think for a lot of us, it was just like, oh, well, cool, it's another superhero movie. I don't think any of us really watched it with an eye of this is setting something else up and this is doing that, you know. So the things that were unexplained in Iron Man 2 totally made sense later on. If, like you said, going back with a view to hindsight, I think it makes total sense now. But I think then it was just like, oh, cool, another Iron Man movie.
If anything, the shame that should be brought on to Marvel because of Iron Man 2 is they probably drove Jon Favreau out by rushing that movie.
Yeah.
And he should be the patron saint of Marvel. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm sure many do consider it, but when you think now, it's always like Russo brothers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if it wasn't for his Iron Man, none of this
would have happened. Yeah.
Right. So at one point, we all, or some of us, wanted to be like an astronaut or a firefighter or even a superhero. So other than being like a comic, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Oh, I think I wanted to be Spider-Man. Is that what you mean?
Sure, we can mean that too.
Sure.
Okay. Or do you
I was thinking outside of the realm of superheroes, but
oh, what did I want to be? Well, I don't know. I still don't know if I know, but you know what I'd want to be if I could be anything? I'd want to be a chef. I think that is that's a superpower I wish I had, just understanding sweet, savory, this, that. And like to me that would be really, really cool. Like if I had time, I'd want to take cooking classes. I'm not sure that answers your question either. But I went on to fulfill all my dreams. So I left nothing on the table.
Nice. Oh, the fact that you declare that you're still growing up. So you said you weren't growing up. So yeah, if you want to be a chef as you grow older, that's fine.
A chef, Spider-Man. What are you trying to get at? What am I not answering correctly?
Spider chef. So
is Spider Pig on the menu?
Right. We can cut that out. All right. So another cool thing is that you gave us a list of some of the things that you like and or don't like in the world of nerdery. And so cool. Thank you for that. And I like the fact that you weren't super fixated on one thing. You said, this is the only thing I'll watch. This is the only thing that I'll pay attention to. It looks like to me, like you sample a little bit of this, you take a little bit of that, you kind of, take it all in. But I want to talk favorites. Okay, so I know that you're a big MCU fan, but that aside, this may not answer the question. I make it pretty clear that Star Wars is top dog in my world. I love MCU. I love DC movies. I like sci-fi outside of the world of Star Wars. But for Jeff Dwoskin, what is the one thing, whether it's a movie, a show, a comic book, whatever it is, what's the one thing that you keep going back to over and over again because it's always refreshing to you?
What you mean, like what, a series of movies or anything?
Sure.
Like
is there like for me, I always say that Star Wars is like a marriage for me. It's there for me in sickness and in health, good times and bad. There's not a day where I don't go through looking at something Star Wars related. So, is there something like that for you where you always go back to it? You're drawn to this more than this?
I don't get back to it as often as I should, but I think if I was going to say I'm drawn to one thing, it's, if you were to say what's the one thing you love more than anything else, I would say the Twilight Zone, the original Twilight Zone by Rod Serling.
Okay.
And Rod Serling's Twilight Zone. I have on my bookshelf, a whole section dedicated to the Twilight Zone, and in my basement I have a ton of TV Land, I think, game toys that they put out, like the from the various series. And I have little figurines on my thing, and I have the entire DVD set and books and 2 companions, Twilight Zone companions. So I mean, as I was growing up, the Twilight Zone was to me like what kind of framed how I enjoyed storytelling, and the idea of at the end things not being what you thought they were, or seeing a different side of something brought out through the storytelling, I thought was brilliant. And it was so brilliant they were never able to really replicate it. And even in like the new Jordan Peele one, which I've watched some of the first season, to me it was like, it was almost a cheat to do longer than 23 minutes. I mean, they were able to pull off this classic thing and in such a short amount of storytelling time. To say, oh, we're going to do Twilight Zone with an unlimited amount of time that we feel fit, I think is a cheat. I mean, I think part of it was the fact that there was a specific amount of time, and even the Twilight Zone, when it went to an hour, was not the same show, and then they even went back. And so I actually have a whole episode of my podcast coming out where I talk about the Twilight Zone. I did one with James Bond, and we're going to do one with the Twilight Zone where I talk about this kind of stuff. But to me, like, there was a specialness of that, and it just seems non-replicatable and so special, and it's still classic. And when you watch the old ones, they're still really great.
Mm,
I agree. There was, between those and the old Alfred Hitchcock series, I used to remember when I was a kid, I would on WGN at night, because their news was on an hour earlier than everybody else's news. And so after those were over, I'd go and I'd, into our family room when I was a kid, and I'd watch the Twilight Zone and the Alfred Hitchcock, I think it was called the Mystery Hour or something like that. And I always loved those shows because it was always something that was, like you said, it was never what you thought it was. It wasn't a cut and dry whodunit on the Alfred Hitchcock stuff. You always had to like figure out what was happening and why and to who. And in Twilight Zone, it could be, it wasn't what you thought it was. It wasn't the thing, whatever the story was going this way, then there was a curveball, and the next thing you know, the story went this way. And there was always a cool reason as to why it happened that way, but it was very much, I always thought of it as like theatrical sleight of hand,
Right.
Where things got changed up a little bit, but it was still a cool story.
Absolutely.
Our sci-fi page is full of memes that make a lot of people laugh and to have fun with. And a lot of them are just crossovers between one character from this universe and putting them in another. So if you were in charge of a meme maker, what sci-fi superhero style crossover would you make? What hero would you move into what universe?
Well, I think the mashups, a good mashup is always going to be funny. Actually, I just saw a really funny sci-fi meme the other day. It was a bunch of stormtroopers, in their white uniforms, and the caption was, I'm doing this by memory, but like the caption was something like a team of stormtroopers returning from a paintball expedition or something.
All right.
but they're all still in a perfect
pristinely white. Yes,
pristinely white. And I thought that was really funny. I don't think you can get funnier than mixing a Star Trek or a quote with a Star Wars person or vice versa. I think that's because I think those, like Tim was saying earlier, with you love one more than the other, and the mixing is the worst thing you can do to either one of those groups. And so, like if you have a Captain Picard saying, "May the Force be with you," I think something like that is always, because I think part of it's not just being funny; it's irking the fandoms as well. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are the two easily irked.
Yeah, some of the two that are typically most at war with each other. That's for sure.
Right.
One of my favorites right now. There's a bunch of ones that will have so how to tick off 4 fandoms at once, and it'll have like a picture of one guy, and it'll have a Harry Potter reference in there and a Star Wars reference with a Star Trek uniform, and and it's just it's funny to me, but and it's kind of funny to me, even more funny to me, that when inside of the group, some of the people who take this, like, oh, how dare you, it's like you've committed a level of sacrilege, that how dare you cross those streams and make that happen. Why would you do that? So,
well, it's interesting because, like with Harry Potter, if you're watching The Mandalorian and the whole Darksaber thing that they introduce and then fully explain at the end of season 2, you're like, oh, that's the wand rules, right, in Harry Potter. And so that was the whole way that they defeated, Voldemort and stuff like that. And so then the question comes, well, which came first, right? And I'm pretty sure Star Wars probably came first. So I don't know with the dark saber.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, right? Well, I don't know when the dark saber stuff came out, but like, because the dark saber rules weren't in the original trilogies,
that part I'm not sure. I think, well, sci-fi, if honestly borrows heavily so much from each other. There's many tropes that go from one to another and back and forth. And
sure, and even Star Wars was borrowed from something else, but like,
oh yeah, absolutely,
yeah, so.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things too, another, it's a TikTok, and it's of a stand-up comedian actually talking about how Harry Potter is just Star Wars with sucky lightsabers,
right, right.
goes through and compares them all. That always cracks me up. It's even better when you watch somebody who's a Harry Potter fan. They're like, they do those blind reactions on TikTok. They'll get a blind react of a Harry Potter fan listening to that, and by the end they're like, they're not wrong.
And then you have Stargate over in the corner just being like, you guys have at it, like.
Right. Nick, I don't want it to go unsaid that I think you have an amazing mustache.
Thanks.
Oh, you just gave him an excuse to play with it. That's all you did there.
Don't play with it. It's a family show.
That's right. All right. So one of the cool things about having a podcast, and Jeff, you know this as well as we do, is that you have opportunity to talk with lots of amazing people. Like we're talking with the amazing Jeff Dwoskin right now, but people that we're either fans of their work or we've just heard that they were cool and that we should have a cool conversation with them, and we want to share in that fun. Now, about your show, who has been your favorite guest thus far and why?
Well, it's not a fair question, because I'd hate for like somebody to, I like to think that my guests would listen and then hope I didn't pick one over the other. I enjoy a lot of them, but if I was to pick, it's funny because sometimes like that answer may be sitting on my hard drive, meaning like, it hasn't been released,
hasn't been published yet. Yeah, I get it.
Like I have a gray one coming out Monday, and I don't tend to talk about who's coming up until my episode is done, because gosh forbid, like something happens with it, or something screws up or something like that.
The computer spiders eat it somehow. Yeah.
Right. But I love talking to Hal Sparks. I love talking to comedians. Are great to talk to because the conversation just goes in so many different directions. They don't necessarily want to be interviewed. They just want to talk.
Right.
And so, when I talk to Alonzo Bowden, or I talk to Bill Dwyer, or sometimes it's hard to get a word in because, they love to talk, and it becomes more of a conversation, but, or Dave Landau, those are all kind of real fun conversations to kind of just hear, because comedians, they're on stage and they're not PC, but they're not afraid to just say things and have conversations. Right. And so, that was cool. Billy Van Zandt was one of my favorites. I read his book, and then we talked, and I've actually had him back, and that'll be released in the next month or so. But those are always really, really cool. But it's also kind of about just kind of mixing it up as well. I love talking to actors and actresses. Candy Clark was on from American Graffiti.
Oh yeah.
And so we talked a lot about that, and then we talked a bit about The Man Who Fell to Earth with David Bowie. She, was the star of that movie with David Bowie, and so that was pretty cool. And I remember saying to her, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize Rip Torn was young at one point. I'm so used to him from Larry Sanders or like Men in Black. And she's like, right. Jeff, he was middle-aged in that movie. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Just for Men has been good to him. Yeah. So,
so it's just a matter of just kind of keeping it interesting. Who's been your favorite?
Well, for me, a couple. Our first two interviews are two of my favorites. We had a guy who portrays Captain Rex in cosplay, And so, you know, having a chance to talk with him was really cool because of his perspective on the whole Star Wars universe and being such a huge Star Wars fan, and talking about what it meant for him to put on that Captain Rex uniform and be part of the 501st Legion and the things that the 501st is involved in and all of that. He really gave a unique perspective, and I like the stories that he was able to share because of that. We had a interview with Guy Sklanders, who runs a YouTube page called How to Be a Great GM. And Guy, that was just a lot of fun. The conversation went absolutely everywhere and nowhere. And there's some great quotable one-liners that come out of that conversation that, you know, if you're talking with people who've watched the show, and if you can watch some of our past live episodes, there's a lot of references to the jokes that were made in that episode. And that was the second episode that we aired. That's you know, cool. And then past that, of course, we just had Povenmire on. That was a lot of fun. Dan Povenmire, the co-creator of Phineas and Ferb.
I was jealous of that one. You can throw him my way. I would just I don't even just want to hear him. I would just want to hear him doing the voices.
Right. Well, the whole time he's talking to us, I'm sitting there like, hi. You know, and all we don't air the, you know, like when we had you do the introduction to the show, and when he did the introduction to the show, of course he did it as Dr. Doofenshmirtz. And so having that opportunity to have him do that, I was like, okay, I'm done. I can go home now. My day has been fulfilled.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then I think one of my all-time favorite guests, though, we had him back as a guest host recently when we had Scott Curtis on, and from Behind the Bits. And his name is Frank Duran, who also hosts a podcast called The Warp Shelf. We had him on as a guest, and I just really enjoyed the conversation with him. He was just a lot of fun. He's from Boston area, and he gets worked up real easy, and he's very emotional, and he's just a lot of fun. But he's hysterical. He's got some really cool viewpoints and thoughts on things, and that's one of my favorite episodes right now.
That's cool.
Nick, what about you?
I was thinking, you know, just I did like the one with Sarah Warner. She does a Girl in Space episodes, and it's gotten like rave reviews and stuff, but her personality is just amazing, and like they were all amazing, and it's just really nice, like you were saying, to hear those backstories and like some of those side stories that you don't normally get to hear about their character or things that happened and to how they got to that point. And I just think that is all interesting.
That is cool. That is cool.
So, Jeff, who would be a dream interview for your show? Now, you've talked about all these people you've had on your show. Who's one person that you'd really like to have on your show that if they were to see this on YouTube and you could say, please come to the Jeff Dwoskin Show, pretty please, sugar on top, possibly a cherry, who would it be?
I think I have three. One is Henry Winkler, but he kind of said no. And then
not like full on, just kind of.
It was a polite no. And then wasn't literally him, but Steve Martin would be cool, or Steven Spielberg would be cool. But I feel I might have to wait 20 more years before they would be willing to do a podcast with me. But yeah, I mean those would be cool people. But you know, I always surprise myself. You know, you asked one of my favorites was John Iman. And he was on an episode of The Twilight Zone, which is why I wanted to talk to him. And there was just so much more and so many other stories. And it's funny, his episode, like on YouTube, did it really well compared to how I do on YouTube. It did great, like really great, like a lot of listens. So I mean, some there's must gotten some algorithm there, but it was such an interesting thing. And he was in this Carnation ad in like 1959, I think. And so I went on eBay and I bought the Life magazine he was in, got the ad, mailed it to him. He signed it, sent it back to me, and I have it framed now on my wall. And so, you know, so that was really cool. And it was just like, I'm really into, like, I love the old advertising style. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
when
yeah,
you see
yeah.
those old style. So I was like, I'm like, once I found that out, I was like, while I was talking to him, if you listen to the interview, I'll go, I'm going to buy that and I'm going to mail it to you. Like, it was my immediate reaction. It wasn't like something I thought of later. It was like, as we're talking about it, I'm like, I'm going to find that. And like, since the interviews aired much later, I think after I did the interview and I'd come back as, live or in the studio, they said it's taping. I'm like, and I did buy it, and I did, and I have it. And it's on my Instagram now, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
It honestly is like one of my favorite things. I have them. Yeah, and so that was really cool. And so it's like those experiences that you never, you don't realize you're gonna have when you talk to people. And sometimes those experiences don't come from the most famous people that you meet. And so so there's definite gems. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
absolutely. Yeah, I feel that much the same way about. So we had an not an actor, but an author on named Dayton Ward, and Dayton Ward's a Star Trek author. Now I am fully parked in the Star Trek camp, not in the Star Wars camp, rather. Excuse me. And I really don't cross over to Star Trek all that often. It's never grabbed my attention very well. And so I was legitimately worried about how this conversation was going to go, because he clearly is very pro Star Trek. I mean, he's a New York Times best-selling author. He's published all these great books about Star Trek. That was honestly one of the coolest conversations I think we've ever had. And I laughed pretty heartily, and said some of the jokes, and, he picked on me for, being a Star Wars fan and interviewing a Star Trek guy. And it was pretty entertaining. But he signed one of his things. He has a book called Kirk Fu, which is a visual aid to all of Captain Kirk's imaginary kung fu moves. And
That's funny.
it's a great book, by the way. If you guys haven't seen this yet, you can find it on Amazon for, I think, like, it's either $12.99 or $14.99, but it's an illustrated book that he wrote as a, and he even tells you that the joke of the book is that he wrote it as a straight instructional manual. There's no joke in the writing. All the jokes are in the illustrations that this other guy did, Christian something, I don't remember his last name, but phenomenal book.
I gotta look that up. That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
I'm writing it down right now.
Yeah, that is it's super cool. But it's the Kirk Fu Manual by Dayton Ward, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. He had some little promotional posters, and he sent us a copy of the book and the promotional poster signed. So although you can't see it right now, behind my amazing green screen, it's hanging on the wall.
I like that.
Somewhere about where that fist is.
Yeah, right about here, I think. That area.
So can I rant on science fiction for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's my thing. This is what annoys me, like with the new Star Treks, right?
Go for it.
And I'll even lump in Man of Steel into this. Okay. Zack Snyder's Man of Steel there's got to be more stories that one can tell. Okay. When the original Superman with Christopher Reeve came out, and Superman 2 and Zod and all that kind of stuff, it was amazing. It was just great. Right. Well, flash forward, 40 years or whatever, Man of Steel, really all you can come up with is freaking Zod again. I mean, the same exact characters. And then Star Trek, the second Star Trek, once they brought it back, and I liked the vibe of the reboot with Chris Pine and stuff. But then the second one, oh my God, it's Khan. Really? You couldn't come up with something else? I mean, there's a million things you could come up with. I mean, it's one thing that you're redoing the same story again, but you have to actually use the same characters. Like, there's no other way to tell a story. Like, people are so dumb that all they can accept is a new version of the exact same thing that they once saw, or even if they hadn't seen it, it worked, so let's do it again. You can't come up with something original and new. There isn't one other character in the Superman mythos besides Zod that you could have done it or gone a different direction with, or just created a new character maybe. I mean, come on, and it has to be Khan again. The brilliance of bringing back Khan in Star Trek 2, which I'll argue of any of the Star Wars and Star Trek movies, Star Trek 2 Wrath of Khan is one of the best of
The
any of
original?
those. The original Wrath of
Yeah,
Khan
I agree.
is one of the
It's-
best everything. And when you
It's
look,
one of the few Star Treks I actually do like.
it's brilliant. And so then to think that somebody went back and said, oh, there's this episode called Space Seed with Ricardo Montalban. What if we did a sequel to that episode? I mean, like the brilliance of that was
Mhm.
just amazing, right? And you can get into whether Khan recognizes characters in the movie that weren't in the episode or not, whatever. But like get past all that stuff. And it was just great, right?
Mhm.
And then, but then you have, it's just like that to me is the problem. It's like, why are we retreading the same exact things? There's how many decades worth of Superman stories? You have to pick the same one. Yeah, I mean, it's like, it just seems so lazy. And then this is the guy that now we're like putting our hats on to, he's going to save the Justice League. It's like, I hate to break it to everyone, but like, if you watch the original Batman v Superman and then you watch the extended cut's better, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
original one that they put in the theater sucked, right? And it just wasn't great. And you may have enjoyed it in the moment, but if you rewatch it, you didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy the extended cut. The extended cut kind of filled in some areas. So, I mean, I hate to break it to everyone, but if Zack Snyder's tragedy hadn't happened and he hadn't left and he had put out his Justice League, it would have sucked. It would have sucked because look at what he's coming up with now, which is like some 4-hour thing, right? They would have made him cut it down and it would have just sucked again. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so, oh, can I say sucked? I'm sorry. It would have.
You're good.
Here, I'll say stinkerooted, and you can edit it. And I'll throw some more. I'll just say some words you can edit over. It would have been stinky. It would have been poo poo in my pants. Like there's some family. You can edit over instead of bleeping.
Oh no, we're leaving all that in.
And so, but it's like to think that like this. So this version of Justice League that's coming out is in no way anything that we would have gotten the many years ago when Joss Whedon took over. Because I mean, you have Jared Leto's Joker in there and stuff like. None of these things would have been part of that movie. You can't.
No, there would have been so much on the cutting room floor because for the most part, short of the Lord of the Rings movies, no other movie really, and Endgame really, is surviving at the 3-hour mark. It does. There has to be something of substance and traction there for people to pay attention to it. And Hollywood is, like you mentioned, is so afraid of putting out something that's original, not rehashed, that typically those stories kind of burn themselves out at about the 90-minute to 120-minute mark. There's nothing much that they can pack into that, to make those stories much better. And frankly, as far as the Man of Steel is concerned, I like the movie. I honestly wish they would not have brought Zod back. I would have preferred to see the classic Lex Luthor versus Superman, if that's what they were going to do, to set up why Lex Luthor was, going to be his prime adversary, over the next however many movies.
Right. Lex is somebody that should always be there. Like that's like
right. It felt odd that there was a Superman movie without a Lex Luthor.
Yeah, that was. I liked Man of Steel, but you had to have liked. Here's the problem with Superman and Thor has the same problem. They're boring because I'm not talking about once they hit Ragnarok, but like they're boring characters because nothing can happen to them. And so Superman, the joy of Christopher Reeve was that it was enjoyable. I mean, you felt like he was a good, I'm blanking on his name, Superman. The guy who plays Superman now, and I don't think it's his fault because he definitely has charm, but Zack Snyder decided to hide that. I mean, who wants a growling, upset, not happy, dark Superman? You know what I mean? It's like, even in the cool clip that they just released, it's suit Superman shooting eye beams. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
But that's not Superman. I mean, that's not who, I enjoyed Man of Steel. I thought Kevin Costner was great as
I know we've made fun of like the CW at times about getting a hold of DC, but I think the one thing they did do right was Smallville.
John
Which
Schneider
was-
was great as
Yeah.
as Jonathan Kent.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that series of Superman, I think, was phenomenal. And that's one of the ones I have gone back and rewatched just because I'm like, this is Superman to me, kind of thing.
Yeah, once I think they got through the Kryptonite Freak of the Week kind of patterns, I think I enjoyed Smallville. Smallville was one of those shows that I never watched when it was on, but I DVR'd it. It was always like my summer show, like where I would then sit down and I would catch up during the summer, and I really really enjoyed Tom Welling and Smallville and all that kind of stuff. I agree, it was good, and I liked how they kind of introduced things, and they were the first ones to kind of do the whole Justice League thing and had Aquaman and all the different the Flash and kind of brought all
Right.
those characters. That without Smallville, you wouldn't have the Arrowverse that they have right now in CW.
Well, it doesn't seem right to blame them for that.
Well, that was like the Oliver God, why can't Green Arrow. Well,
Yeah.
that was a main character in Smallville, right? I mean, that was
Mhm.
sort of like the way they kind of got around not having a Bruce Wayne Superman. Yeah.
Right.
I'll tell you what show I really like is Titans. the DC is dark, but I like Titan. I think the guy who plays Dick Grayson is great, and
Mhm.
I'm almost done with season 2, and I think season 3 is being made.
When I first
maybe?
saw images for that show, Titans, I was slightly concerned because I'm like, how are they going to hold up with? Because I loved the Teen Titans original cartoon, not the remake of the cartoon.
Not the Teen Titans Go.
Yeah, not the Teen Titans Go, but the original one had just like really great storytelling and stuff. And I'm like, okay, how are they going to do this?
Well, they have full reign with I think the DC catalog, but then this is gritty. I mean, this isn't family friendly, so if you're into family friendly, do not watch Titans. I mean, there's swearing and there's other adult things that happen, and so it's a gritty show, but it's sort of like my fill in the time blank. It's a show I don't watch
Right.
with my wife. So how you have shows that you don't watch with your partner, and so like this is that one for me. And so when we're not together and watching the shows we watch together, I'm watching Titans.
I call those sci-fi. So
Right. But she watches WandaVision with me, and my wife loves WandaVision. I'll tell you the thing about WandaVision, I'd rather them just make TV shows from now on and forget the movies. I'm like, why are you trying to squeeze everything into 2 hours? Just make a TV show. TV is so great now. And they basically, WandaVision is basically a miniseries movie, right? I mean, it's like,
it's been fantastic.
And I'm sure like the same thing with the Mandalorian and all that. And it's like, why make movies? Why try and jam all these things into 2 hours when you can just do it over 8 to 10 episodes and just in such a much more, I think, and maybe enjoyable way.
Yeah,
I think that's
right.
the answer to the pandemic is forget the movies.
So we like to talk to people about their inspirations and what got them to where they are today. So who is your comedic inspiration, and who do you like to watch or listen to that made you think that a future in stand-up comedy would be for you?
One of my favorite comedians. I had a few favorite comedians. One is Rodney Dangerfield and Steve Martin. That's who I kind of listened to as a kid with cassettes. So Google cassettes, kids. But I think as I sort of started to frame my style, or like who I felt was Dennis Miller. And I'm not saying I'm like Dennis Miller, but like I love Dennis Miller. When I say Dennis Miller, you're like, wait, I'm not, this is pre-politics Dennis Miller. I'm talking 80s SNL Dennis Miller. I loved the smartness of his humor. And once he went political, I didn't really enjoy him as much anymore, and I stopped watching. But back then it was just so smart. It was like with his references, and most of them you didn't get, but it was just I liked how he did it. It was really cool to me. I don't know that that's how I do jokes or anything like that, but that was part of like one of the very first things I ever did comedy wise was at camp. and when I was a counselor, and we did a talent show, and I was Dennis Miller. We did like, it was an SNL thing. Like the theme was SNL, right? And so I was Dennis Miller, and I wrote jokes as if I was doing the news, but it was a camp, related. And that was like the first time I actually wrote material and did it. And it was really cool. I am bummed to this day that, it was before cameras and all that kind of stuff, and, on everyone's phones. So nothing exists, but it was great. And that's who I really enjoyed kind of watching. I loved Gary Shandling.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah.
And so, those were like the comedians that I watched because my parents really liked them. And so that's just who I kind of gleaned to. So
Speaking of Steve Martin, the one movie I love is with him and Michael Caine, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
great movie. Yeah.
That is one of my favorites, top fives at least, that I will rewatch.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I love Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And there's a bunch.
There's so many with Martin that I could list off. I like this one. I like that one. I like that one. There's not many that are in his catalog that I go, I could do without that one. The movie Roxanne, about him having the very big nose.
Brilliant.
The
scene where he's throwing the darts and doing the jokes is like one of the greatest.
It's a good movie. It's not one of my rewatches. I'll watch it every now and then if it's on, or I don't turn away from it, but it's not one that I actively go out of my way to watch, like Three Amigos or I
haven't seen Roxanne in decades. Yeah.
Or Bowfinger. I love Bowfinger.
Bowfinger with Eddie Murphy.
So much about that one. So, all right, well, that's cool. And still, honestly, I think that Dennis Miller is probably my favorite SNL Weekend Update host of all time. I think, what he did there with that desk is really what I think everyone past him has tried to emulate, because he should be the standard. I think that thing on SNL is measured up to, in my opinion.
I agree. I liked Norm Macdonald a lot. I liked when Tina Fey and Amy Poehler did it. That was great.
I like Seth Green.
I like the new guys.
Seth Green.
Seth Meyers.
I like Seth Green too, but different reasons. So
I did not like Colin Jost and Michael Che when they first started, but I do enjoy them a lot now. I think they
grew on me.
They got their rhythms and they got their things down, and I'm glad they were given the opportunity to kind of just keep going. Because I now I really like them a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Jeff, we have come to that portion of the show where we like to torture our guests with a quiz.
Okay. All right. I feel like I've been dropping names and stuff the whole time. I've been impressing myself with my recall.
There is a high level of name drop here, but we're going to let it slide. So
you asked. I was just.
I did. I definitely pushed the envelope for you. All right. So our quiz today is about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So these are all MCU related quizzes about stuff that you should have been able to pick up from the movies. Okay.
Okay.
So if there's going to be 5 questions, they're all multiple choice. Okay. So don't answer until you get all the multiple choices. There will be 3 multiple choices for every question. Okay.
Okay.
Now, out of the 5 questions, if you get 3 right, we're going to send you one of these beautifully designed mugs.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it says, "I gave to the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund."
Okay.
And on the back side has our beautiful logo for the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
I love that.
All right. And then if you get 4 correct, we're going to send you this book, The Custodians of the Cosmos, written by Drayton Allen, our page founder. And don't tell anybody, but it's Nick's dad. And
nice.
But we're going to send you one of those books. It's written about a young man who wanted to enter Starfleet, couldn't hack it, washed out, and so he joined as a custodian so he could boldly clean up after those who boldly just went. So but yeah, so if you get 4, we're going to give you the book and the mug. Okay. And if you get 4 out of 4, then the 5th question is just for fun.
Okay. Now, I'm excited.
Yeah. And now, however, should you not get 3 questions correct, if you only get 2 correct, we take a picture of your face and we make a meme out of you. We call it our fun sequence.
All right.
Do you agree to having your picture taken just in case?
I think I already waived all my legal rights earlier.
You may
Yes.
have. You may have.
Right.
All
Do
right,
whatever,
Nick,
yeah, I'm
fire
okay.
away.
All right, first question. How many infinity stones are there? 4, 6, or 5?
6?
Yes, you are correct.
It's like one of those things. Like you watch these things, but you don't like, all right, it's
Honestly, when I was writing the question, I had to look it up to make sure that I had counted the right, because I was like going by the glove. I'm like, there's one on each finger, and then there's the one in the middle of the palm, and yeah.
right.
So, all right.
Okay. I'm
Question 2.
two away from a mug.
There you go. Question 2. What is the name of T'Challa's sister? Was it Susie, Siri, or Shuri?
I think Shuri.
Correct. Shuri. You're 2 for 2. You're 1 question away from a mug.
I can't. I might just quit after the mug. I really don't. I really don't want your dad's book, Nick. Sorry. No, just kidding.
What kind of animal is goose? A goose, a cat, or a flurkin?
It's a flarkin.
You are correct.
All right. You win yourself a mug.
Okay.
You are 3 for 3. I might have made this too easy.
I might just throw the next 2 questions.
All right. So question 4.
Is the book signed?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it'll
all
be
right,
signed.
All right, then I'll try harder.
It'll be vandalized. We'll make sure of it.
I like signed.
All right. Where is Captain America from? Queens, Brooklyn, or Manhattan?
Oh, that's a good one. It's either Queens or Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, that's right. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn. I can do this all day.
Ugh, I'm stuck with that book now.
Fifth question for fun. Where is vibranium primarily found?
Wakanda.
You gave me some funky names.
Right. So Latveria.
Is that right, though?
Latveria, Themkaria, or Wakanda?
Wakanda.
All right. Ooh, I made this way too easy, by the way.
No,
All right.
All right. This is exciting. I'm very excited.
That's his exciting face, fun.
No, I am. I love mugs. I love this will be you'll send it to me and I'll be opening it, and this is exactly what my wife will say. Why do we need this crap in the house? We need more crap. She's trying to get rid. She's trying to get rid of mugs. But I'm going to put your mug actually on my bookshelf.
All right, so you get the book
and the book.
It'll be autographed. We'll make sure of that, and you get the coffee mug as
Oh,
well.
does your wife like to read?
I'm very excited. She likes to read, yeah, but
so
be like, I got a mug for me and a book for you.
See, there you go.
There you go.
A little bit for everybody. All right, so 5 for 5. Good job on the quiz there, Jeff.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can people go to find out more about your work?
Thank you for having me on the Funny Science Fiction podcast. I enjoyed it very much. And you can find me at Jeff Dwoskin Show. But if you can't spell my name, you can go to jeffisfunny.com. But Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show is a podcast that is on all your favorite podcast apps or what have you. So you can check that out. But again, you can also go to jeffisfunny.com. You can play it from there. You don't need any of those podcast apps. And I also do a live show every Wednesday called Crossing the Streams, which we talk about TV shows that you should be streaming. And that's live on YouTube and Facebook every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. So thank you guys again for having me and for the mug and the book. I'm very excited, even though I had to work for those.
Excellent. We will be sure to place those in our description down below so that people can find you and all your other works.
I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, and if you didn't notice, I referenced Crossing the Stream at least twice during our interview.
You did. It was I enjoyed it. Oh, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jeff Dwoskin Show as well. So.
There you go.
All
Are
right.
those also on Jeff is Funny? The links to that, if people go to your website, can they cross over your socials?
Yes.
Okay. So primarily a good place to go is for Jeff
The
is funny.
website.
All right, perfect. All right, so folks, we want to remind you that subscribing is the single most important thing that you can do to ensure that we get more amazing guests like Jeff here, and that you have funny stuff to listen to. Now, if you subscribe, it's going to help us more than you know, but we also want to make sure that you go to jeffisfunny.com, check out his stuff, and check out the Live from Detroit Jeff Dwoskin Show. Like he said, you can find that anywhere. Please be sure to subscribe to his stuff as well. Jeff has some really good content out there. As a subscriber, I can speak to say that this is good stuff. It's fun to listen to, and you guys won't regret it. Now, however, if you are unhappy with the content of our video today, all you have to do is submit to our complaint department, which of course will be referred to its director, Dr. Strange, who will see if there's more than one resolution possible in the 14 million possible answers. But I doubt it. That would seem strange.
Well, thanks again, Jeff.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for being on today, Jeff. And thanks everyone for watching and or listening.
Thanks for everyone.
Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund, which supports the Wish Upon a Teen Foundation that helps out sick kids when they need it most. And just imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt crewman number 48. He'll know that when he puts on the red shirt and gets eaten by his date from hutsmingle.com 4 courses in, that he didn't leave his crewmates destitute and without hope, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back and his restaurant bill.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of Funny Science Fiction, we'd like to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on one of our future episodes, please contact us by means of our Facebook group, Funny Science Fiction. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FunnySciFi, or you can go to DraytonAllen.com and click the Contact Me link at the bottom of the page. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Copyright 2020 by Drayton Allen. Original music by Jordan Michaels. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned in this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation of or by Funny Science Fiction or its sponsors. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at DraytonAllen@DraytonAllen.com.